Album of the Month.
What is going on, YouTubeverse? John Stanek from Johnny Radio here, bringing you another Album of the Month, this time for November 2019, and I could not be more excited than to be talking to you about Coldplay and their brand new double album, Everyday Life. It has two halves called Sunrise and Sunset, 16 tracks on this thing, and even though it is quite a bit, it's only 52 minutes in length overall, so it's a concise double album, if that makes sense, and a very welcome one into their already great catalog. A really good step in this direction after I feel kind of a misstep of A Head Full of Dreams from 2015. I think that was their weakest album thus far. This is them getting back to not only their Coldplay roots, but their experimental roots that they had on 2008's Viva La Vida, which is my second favorite Coldplay album, right behind Rush of Blood to the Head, which you see on my wall of perfect albums here. Obviously, they're one of my favorite bands, and man, I'm telling you, this is, even though it's only been out for one day, I've listened to it multiple times and it continues to grow on me as an overall cohesive album. It's really a cool experience, from the opener of Sunrise, which is an instrumental track that actually none of the band members play on. It is orchestral, and it is just this magical opening that reminds me a little bit of Introduction from Nick Drake's Brighter Later. And if you happen to catch their live performance in Jordan on YouTube of Sunrise and Sunset at the appropriate times, I think it really adds to the experience as well. I mean, I think as human beings, we're very visual anyway, but it really kind of makes it more profound to see the sun coming up as Sunrise is happening, and all the tracks on that first half, which if I had to pick my standout favorites from the Sunrise portion, Arabesque, definitely. I've already done actually a hot track review of that song, which you can watch on my channel at a later time, but just brilliant how it's the Coldplay sound, but kind of a jammy groove, adding Femi Kuti and his son on saxophone, and just this really cool world music vibe that gives the message that even though we're different, we're really all the same. And that message really hits home on a couple other tracks. Actually, I think Coldplay is at its best on this album when they're tackling some of the weightier subjects, like Trouble in Town, the third track on the album, is a really cool, kind of almost has a little bit of a Peter Gabriel vibe to it, a little darker tone, kind of like Arabesque, that has that bass groove is really holding it down, but he's talking about police brutality on this song and some of the really crazy things that are going on in the world, but it just really builds and explodes like Arabesque. Those are probably my favorite two tracks on the entire album, as a matter of fact, but there's all different styles on here. There's actually, they get very experimental in that, if you would call this their White Album or Exile on Main Street, there's some songs on here that it's just Coldplay doing a different genre, like Broken is a full-on gospel track that has a gospel choir, and it's actually really a cool song. It's only 2 minutes long. It's almost more like an interlude. So it's not something that I would find myself probably putting on a mix and listening to later. It only really works in the construct of the album. And there's several songs like that. Cry, Cry, Cry on the Sunset record is more of a 50s doo-wop song that kind of seems awkward at first, but the more you listen to it, it's catchy, and it's kind of a nice interlude in between two folk songs, Echo and Old Friend, which Echo is one that's really growing on me. It's got, Johnny does this really brilliant, beautiful lead over the folky acoustic, and it's kind of harkens back to very early Coldplay. So you kind of get a little bit of everything on here, plus even more with some of those, Coldplay doing these genre dives that you would think wouldn't even work, but I think they pull it off. Actually, the ending of the Sunrise album ends with When I Need a Friend, which is another choir, but this time it's a Baroque choir, and it's really beautiful and majestic. But again, not a song that would be like a single or anything like that. Then, of course, there are singles like Orphans that's got that big sing-along chorus and the fun bass groove. That one on first listen, I wasn't that crazy about, but that has really grown on me. Another one that's growing on me is Champion of the World, which is also very upbeat and happy and just it puts you in a good mood when you hear it. That's a really lovely tune. Then you've got also, on the flip side of that, you've got really deep thought pieces like Daddy, which is a song that Chris Martin wrote really from the perspective, even though he's singing to Daddy, he's writing from his perspective of being on the road a lot and being kind of an absent father. And that really, even though it's really a sad song and not one I would listen to often, it really makes you think, and it really just pulls at your heartstrings. It's a really beautiful track. There's really not a bad song on the album as a whole. There's not a lot that I can say bad about it. It continues to grow on me. Like I said, if I had to give it a grade, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. So highly recommend. And I'm a sucker for Coldplay, no matter what they do, really. I mean, I feel like I'm leaving something out, so I just want to check the track listing again. I do want to say, again, that opening instrumental is really cool. Then there's an instrumental later in the record that the song title is actually in Arabic, so I'm not sure what it's called, but it's great. Guns is another song that tackles a weighty topic here in America anyway, and it's only 2 minutes long, but it's got this feisty acoustic guitar riff, and it's just acoustic and Chris Martin's vocal, and he's got kind of this sarcastic tone talking about guns, too many guns being an issue. It's hard to argue with that logic. And again, overall, there's this message. Of course, with any Coldplay album, there's this message of love. But there's also, the daily, everyday life, the struggles. There's the darkness and the light. They tackle different topics, and they do it really well. And again, those are the ones that stand out the most to me. Arabesque, Trouble in Town, Guns, songs like that it feels like Coldplay are kind of pushing themselves. And I love that about this. I love the album, and can't wait to see what comes next, because supposedly they have another album coming in 2020. So we'll see. So let me know in the comments below what you think. What are your favorite tracks on this album, and what grade would you give it? Would love to see what you think in the comments below. Thank you guys, as always, for watching, and Viva La Vinyl. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, all that jazz. Check out some of my other content that you can see on the screen now. Thank you again for supporting Johnny Radio. Take care, and I'll see you soon.